calling it the bloodiest scene in the history of horror films.
If you get scared of Pennywise, don't worry, you're not alone. Even Jessica Chastain admits to being terrified of the dancing clown, but she says there was one part of filming even scarier than Bill Skarsgard's grin. Dancing clowns are pretty scary on their own, especially when they're secretly ancient, shape-shifting monsters. But Jessica Chastain doesn't find Pennywise half as unpleasant as being doused in 4,500 gallons of fake blood.
Let's do Carrie on steroids.
According to this actress, not only was this the most unpleasant part of filming, but it was also the most terrifying.
I fully went in the blood.
During rehearsal, the crew doused Jessica with water, but when it came time for the cameras to start rolling, that's when things got, well, sticky. Jessica claims the liquid was so thick and dark that it made it impossible for her to see anything around her. And on top of that, she had to grapple with the realization that nobody could see her if she got into trouble. Not only was filming this scene seriously scary, but it also was downright gross. Even under the warm lights of the studio, the substance was absolutely freezing, and the scene took multiple takes to get it just right. And of course, once Jessica was thoroughly doused in liquid, it took a long, cold, and miserable time to remove it all and get ready to do it all again. At the end of a play, it's customary for the cast to take a bow on stage while the audience claps and cheers. But how do you wrap up filming in a memorable way? Just ask Bill Skarsgard, who managed to do something which even unsettled It Chapter 2 director Andy Muschietti. And remember, Andy was the one happily dousing Jessica Chastain in fake blood. He claims that after the final take of the movie, Bill Skarsgard calmly handed him something which he keeps to this very day. Which frightening Pennywise prop was it? It might not surprise you to learn that those pearly whites Pennywise sports aren't real.
Bill took his fake teeth and gave them to me.
Andy says it was the perfect, eerie moment to end filming, and he took the fake teeth home with him where they still remain. Well, that's definitely an interesting souvenir to say the least. If you have nightmares after watching It Chapter 2, then you're definitely not alone. Even one of the stars was plagued by terrible dreams before filming even started. In order to get ready to take on the role of Bill Denbrough, actor James McAvoy decided to reread the original novel by Stephen King.
James read the book. And they're like, oh yeah, we read the book. And I was like, just like now, like recently?
While this might have been a good idea in theory, the plan went sideways when James started having nightmares of the dreaded Pennywise. Honestly, it's hard to blame him. Despite having read the book already as a teenager, James said experiencing the novel as an adult made him feel terrified in all sorts of new ways. He had nightmares of Pennywise, including one particularly awkward one which involved the two sharing a bed while Pennywise stroked his back. Yikes. We wonder if that made it hard to look Bill Skarsgard in the eyes during filming? Not only did James go through this mental trauma, but filming took a physical toll on him as well. Director Andy Muschietti was intent on getting everything perfect, which of course, as the audience, we're grateful for. But as far as the cast is concerned, well, it got pretty tiresome. Because James was forced to do the same scenes over and over again, he ended up tearing his quads and suffered a brutal 6 months of lingering tendinitis. It Chapter 1 came out a couple of years before the sequel, which means the real-life Losers Club grew up quite a bit during that time. In order to maintain continuity, the studio actually used digital de-aging technology to make the child stars look even younger. Even though most of the film takes place in present-day Derry, this small detail couldn't be overlooked. According to the cast, this process involved having their faces and bodies scanned so they could be altered digitally later.
That looked like a hairdryer and they just went...
But some of the child stars needed more help than others. Sophia Lillis claims she remained largely unchanged, so the studio didn't have to do much work with her. But the same can't be said for her co-stars, including Finn Wolfhard, who had the most de-aging done. Jack Dylan Grazer's voice changed so much since the first movie that the studio seriously looked into hiring a voice actor to dub over his lines.
This movie is always going to be near and dear to my heart.
My name is Jack Dylan Grazer. I'm here at 17 to play Plot Quiz.
In order to help the adult actors get into character, the kids also wrote letters to them, which was pretty much the most contact they had before filming started. Bill Skarsgard definitely set the bar really high by handing over his fake Pennywise teeth to the director, but that doesn't mean the rest of the cast didn't take home some goodies. It turns out that tons of the younger cast members brought home mementos to remember their time on set, which is a nicer way of saying they stole some of the props from the movie. Jack Dylan Grazer admitted to taking Eddie Kaspbrak's inhaler, while Jaden Martell kept Bill's bike silver. Sophia didn't have any sticky fingers this time around, but admitted to taking home Beverly's shoes from the first movie.
Then later they said, oh, You weren't supposed to, but that's fine.
While the adult actors didn't fess up to taking any props, maybe it's because they didn't have to. Apparently, filming a horror movie really put Jessica Chastain in the mood for giving, because she handed out some presents to her fellow cast members. She handed out wooden boxes reading "loser" with the S crossed out and a V put in its place and their character name.
And inside are all the losers' tokens.
Horror fans know Bill Skarsgard isn't the first to put on some clown paint and take on the role of Pennywise.
Do you want a balloon too, Georgie? Don't you want a balloon?
There was an It miniseries in 1990 where the role was played by legendary actor Tim Curry. While many of us have fond memories of this horror classic, the miniseries left out one major scene from the books. It involves a gay character named Adrian who was the victim of a terrible hate crime, which resulted in him being attacked by Pennywise. This upsetting scene from It Chapter 2 is even more poignant when you realize it's based on a real-life tragedy. Charlie Howard was a gay man living in Bangor, Maine in the year 1984. He was used to being bullied for his orientation, but one night 3 teenagers took it too far and hurled Charlie from a bridge into the water below. The case shook the town of Bangor, and Charlie's last day alive is now their Diversity Day. It was an absolute tragedy, and it's no wonder this horrific act inspired Stephen King when he was writing the original novel. Casting a major motion picture isn't easy, and It Chapter 2 came with a unique set of challenges. Not only did the studio have to find strong actors willing to work with a nightmare clown, but they also had to look like grown-up versions of the child stars from the previous film. To cast the role of Ben Haskam, they had actor Jay Ryan submit photos of himself as a child so they could compare them to photos of Jeremy Ray Taylor, who plays young Ben. The young version of Mike Hanlon is played by Chosen Jacobs, and the adult version is played by Isaiah Mustafa. Interestingly enough, the word Mustafa means chosen in Arabic, which is quite the coincidence. Most of the child stars seemed pleased with the adult versions of themselves, but Wyatt Olive, who played Stanley Uris, had some complaints. According to Andy Bean, Wyatt flat out told him he had been hoping to be portrayed by Joseph Gordon-Levitt instead. With enough special effects, you can make pretty much anything look scary, but one of the most frightening aspects of Pennywise is something we can attribute directly to Bill Skarsgard himself. You know that creepy, unsettling Pennywise smile that sends shivers down your spine? That's all Bill, and it turns out it's somehow even more unsettling when he does it without makeup on. No, this isn't a neat trick he learned just for filming the movies. Bill has been scaring kids with this look since he was a kid himself. When Bill was about 10 years old, he discovered that he could make this absolutely frightening face, and it had quite an effect on his younger brother. To make it even more terrifying, he would pull his shirt up around his neck and chase his brother around the house, all while making that terrifying face. But just because he had one frightening aspect of Pennywise down pat doesn't mean the role didn't take work. Bill wanted the ultimate transformation to truly become Pennywise, so he took some risks and ended up doing most of his own stunts and fight scenes. Of course, this left Bill frequently exhausted on set, but apparently that's the price you pay for greatness. Actor Bill Hader, who plays Richie Tozier, actually invited his kids to see him on the set of It Chapter 2. Although director Andy Muschietti had no qualms terrifying his adult cast and crew, he tried to be mindful of his young guests. He insisted that Pennywise be absent from the set on the day that Bill Hader's kids came to visit, which could explain their reaction to getting the opportunity to go behind the scenes. While most of us would love to have that chance, these kids found the movie set to be quite boring and were way more excited about going to a Taylor Swift concert later that day. But while his kids were unfazed, Bill admits to being easy to scare. When he saw the opening scene in 28 Weeks Later for the first time, Bill had a full-on panic attack. Like his co-star James McAvoy, Bill also claims that as an adult, he finds himself more frightened of things he would easily brush off when he was a kid. Actor Bill Hader might have a tough time watching scary movies, but that's not the only challenge he faced while working on It Chapter 2. During one scene, Richie was supposed to break down crying, and Bill, well, he just couldn't bring himself to shed a single tear. Director Andy Muschietti tried to help out by encouraging Bill to think about his childhood and the fact that he'll never be able to recapture those magical moments again. Andy asked Bill to cry like he never had before, but Bill just couldn't get the waterworks going. So what finally tipped him over the edge and got him bawling? According to Bill, he finally broke down crying because the water he was in during filming was just so cold.
I cry once every year. Yeah. I'm I got a lot of repressed emotion.
That's right, those tears are less out of sadness and terror than they are of a grown man who's miserable about being soaked in freezing cold water. What do you think about Stephen King's It Chapter 2? Do you think it did justice to the original novel, or did it totally miss the mark? Let us know what you think in the comment section, and then click on the subscribe button for more videos from us here at The Taco. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.